at a video on tomatoes. I was on the local market, and it was the end of the day, and everyone was packing up, and the fruit and veg man was getting rid of tomatoes. Not getting rid of them, but selling them off cheaper than he was selling them at the start of the day. So I bought 2 boxes, and it's also bang on tomato season as well. So these are what I'm going to do with these tomatoes. I'm going to do a few different things, but first of all, I'm going to take some of them. I'm going to blanch them and take the skins off them. So we're going to save the stalks as well, because we're going to do something with those. So as you can see, you just need to nip that little bit of stem out, and it's just a simple case of a sharp knife in, twist round, and then out. That'll go on the compost, even though it's tiny. And then just a quick score on the bottom, and what that'll do is that allow the boiling water will then cook the outside of the skin and allow you to peel them a lot easier. So water up to boiling, and we'll put some tomatoes in. Careful, because it's hot water and you don't want it to splash. So in. I have seen lots of videos on people making tomato sauce in Italy and all around the world, and everyone makes it an entirely different way. This is the way that I'm going to make it, and it just gets rid of the skins, so you don't have to when you're pureeing them down, the apples, you don't have to pure the skins out of the sieve. So water's boiling-ish, doesn't entirely matter, it's not going to take long. As soon as they start to the skins come away from the flesh, then they are ready, and then I've got my favourite green bucket of just cold water. People say you should use ice. Do you know, that's a lot of ice you've got to buy or make. So there we go. The skins start to come away, as you can see there, so that's ready, so that can go straight into the water. So what was that? 30, 40 seconds for those to be ready. Just check them as they come out, and they'll look a little bit wrinkly. So they'll be able to peel those skins off relatively easy. But we need to cool them down first. Cool them down, don't leave them too long in the water, otherwise they start to go a bit soft, and they take on start sucking in some of that water, which you don't want. So I'll do the next lot of batches, and then we'll come back about skinning and prepping them, because you don't want to see me doing all the tomatoes, because there's quite a lot. So this is sun-dried tomatoes done in the oven. So it's not sun-dried tomatoes, it's oven-dried tomatoes. So these are the tomatoes that I have quickly blanched in water across the bottoms, taken the eye out of there, quickly blanched in water, cooled them down, and now they are ready to peel, which is quite straightforward. You just have to do that. You don't even need a knife in some cases. It just skin slips straight off. I just find it's a bit unnecessary. You don't have to skin them. You can just quarter them by all means. But I don't like eating the skin. So that's off there, and then we're going to quarter them. Normally you just do them in half, but I'm going to do them in quarters because I want to remove the water from the inside. So over there, and then as you can see all the pips and all the water inside, so we're just going to scoop that out gently, leaving as much of it intact as possible. I'm going to use that tomato water. A lot of people kind of get a bit funny about that. They kind of seem to think it's a bit bitter in taste. I've never found that bit of the tomato to be bitter in flavour or taste. So I'm going to use it for something else, as always. I'm not going to waste a damn thing. So that's that. Those on there. Some of them are easier to peel, to get rid of the juice than others. You've just got to get your fingers in there and not be scared. You know, you're not really going to wreck them. It's just the more flesh to leave on. The more water like that you remove, they're just going to dry out a lot easier in the oven. And you also kind of want to leave a lot of flesh on as well, because although the more flesh you take off, the less they're just going to dry out to nothing. So on a tray with some, I've just slightly greased it with a bit of olive oil, just cheap olive oil, nothing special. It's not going to really make a difference. And then salt, not too much, because obviously as the tomato dries out, I was thinking of a bigger word but I can't remember it. So as the tomatoes dry out, they're going to intensify in flavour. So if you put on too much salt now, they're going to become really salty. So just a little bit of salt, just to kind of improve the flavour just a little bit. Not too much at all, although for some people that'll probably be too much. And then pepper. I'm not going to put, you can put garlic and herbs on them. I'm not going to. I don't think, I just want tomato, sun-dried tomato, oven-dried tomatoes. And I don't want kind of them to be too garlicky or herby or anything like that. I just want salt and pepper on, that'll be fine. And they're going to go in the oven at 100 degrees for certainly an hour and a half. We'll see how long. But once again, it's not something that you can just put in the oven and disappear off out and go and do a load of jobs and come back 4 hours later and hopefully they're going to be okay, because they won't. You need to keep an eye on them because they can dry out too much, and you want them dry but not too dry. So it's just a case of just keeping your eye on them for a few hours. You know, do other things around the house, but don't disappear off out on a long walk for 4 hours and then come back and expect them they're going to be okay. But we'll come back and I'll talk about how they are and how long I've had them in the oven. Sun-dried tomatoes. They've been in for 3 hours. Some have dried out more than others. I think that's down to the hot spots in the oven. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn them over, and then any kind of moisture that's on the bottom can kind of escape. I think probably what I will do is I'm going to store them in some oil, and I think I will put them in a clean jar with some oil, and then I'm going to heat the jar up. So if there is any kind of bacteria lurking around, it will completely preserve them. Just putting things in oil without kind of any kind of heat or killing any bacteria beforehand doesn't generally work. You can't just put things in oil and expect the oil to preserve things. So I think another couple of hours in the oven, dry those out a bit more. As ones start to get being more ready, like those are ready almost, I'll start picking the ones out that are suitably dried, and leave the ones in that are a little bit softer for longer. They have shrunk, as you can notice from the size where they started, and that's down to the water content in the tomatoes, and because I took the skins off. I don't particularly like to eat the skins, so the skins kind of came off. If I had left the skins on them, they would have kept more of their size in kind of shape, even though you're still evaporating off the same amount of water. But that is, if you're ever kind of curious about how much water is in fruit and vegetables, this is a good way to kind of find out why, how. But there you go. So back into the oven for probably another couple of hours. Those there will probably be done in another half hour. So I'll pull those out, and then the others can sit in the oven just a little bit longer. I'm going to go out. So what I am going to do is I'm going to turn the oven off while I go out, so they don't dry out while I'm out. I'm going to go and be out for like an hour. And I think they're probably overdoing that time. So I'm going to go out. If you're going to go out, you can just turn the oven off, go out, do what you're doing, come back, turn the oven on. That's a good. So you're not. The idea that a tomato is going to rule what you do in a day is ridiculous. So you can do that. You can go out and turn the oven off for a bit. But anyway, so that's it for now. We'll come back later. Here we go. Sun-dried tomatoes. They have massively shrunk, which just goes to show how much water they have in them. They're still a little bit chewy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in a nice clean jar, and I'm going to top the jar up with oil, and then I think I'm going to heat the jar in some water, so it's kind of like not cooking, it's just gently heating, and then up to about 80 degrees, and then it'll kill any kind of bacteria, and hopefully it'll keep for a long time. I'm going to use quite a plain oil. I'm not going to use olive oil. I think it'd be a waste, and olive oil can be a little bit bitter. So I've got some sunflower oil or some vegetable oil. I think that would work perfectly well, and then they should store and keep for quite a long time. Just another way of doing something with tomatoes if you've got a massive glut, or like me, you manage to pick some up really quite cheaply. But I'll show the video on me preserving them in a jar, and we'll see how long they last. Okay, lovely. And that's it for now. So this is the sun-dried tomatoes in a nice clean jar. With some oil, and I've just put it in a pan of water, boil the water up to the boil slowly, because when you're dealing with temperatures in glass, you've got to be careful about the glass shattering. And then it's come to 80 degrees, which means it'll have killed any kind of nastiness that's in there, and I'm going to put a lid on it. The jar is too big for the sun-dried tomatoes. I needed a jar in between a small jar and that size jar, but I didn't have one. So what I'm going to do is, just to kind of make sure that everything's sterilised in the lid, is I'm going to put the lid on, make sure it's tight, not burning my fingers, and then I'm going to submerge, I'm going to turn it over, I'm going to put that upside down, and hopefully what that will do is it will leak. Alright, we'll ignore that. Now hopefully it should kill any bacteria that was in the rest, around the rest of the jar. Hopefully, fingers crossed. It slightly failed with that, but we'll worry about that later. I'm sure that'll be fine. I don't know. Will it be fine? Probably. If it's not, I'll tell you. So, quick update on the oven dried tomatoes, not sun dried tomatoes, oven dried tomatoes. It's like 2 weeks later, and they are perfectly sealed in the jar. There's no movement in the lid, so therefore I know that it's completely sealed. So even though I turned it upside down and some of the oil came out, it sterilised completely inside of the jar and made it completely airtight. They're all underneath the oil, which is a good thing. Maybe if they were some of the tomatoes were above the oil, they might have caught up a little bit of bacteria, but they're all underneath the oil. They've been in the cupboard, haven't kept them in the fridge, so it looks like that works. I would see how long they last in a jar for an experiment, but I'm doing something with them today, so I want to use those because I want to see how they taste as well. So the risk of turning them bad is outweighed by me actually wanting to see how they taste, and I'm sure they'll be delicious. Now I will, I can't remember if I said it in the video before, but if you're putting things, preserving things in oil, and if you're using olive oil, if you put it in the fridge, what happens is it starts to, what I refer to as, it waxes up, it kind of goes a little bit like congealed on top, and that's just, that's not a problem, it's just something that happens when olive oil gets cold. That doesn't happen with other oils, just particularly like olive oil, and I think probably rapeseed oil, that probably like a first pressing rapeseed oil, that'll probably happen as well. So anyway, it's been in the cupboard for a couple of weeks and it's fine, so I'm going to use that, and it looks like it was complete success. So you will now see the video. I wasn't going to show it because it made a bit of a mess of the pan when I turned upside down, but it's worked out okay, so we can include that video. There we go. That's it for now.